Okay guys, so you're thinking about getting a 22 long rifle suppressor, and in addition to that, you're going to need a host for that. So today's firearm review, we're going to be taking a look at 3 different pistol hosts for a 22 long rifle suppressor. In today's video, the suppressor we're going to be using is an AAC Element 2. This is a titanium tubed 22 long rifle suppressor. It's rated for 22 long rifle full auto as well as 22 Magnum and 17 HMR. This suppressor has K baffles, which are stainless steel inside. They're not shielded, so gunk does kind of get on the tube on the inside. For a little bit of information on that, take a look at my AAC Element 2 cleaning video where you can see disassembly, cleaning with an ultrasonic cleaner, and then reassembly of this can. The firearms we're going to be using today are Sig 1911-22. We're going to be using a GSG Firefly, and then we're going to be using a Glock Gen 4 19 with a Advantage Arms conversion kit. So let's start by talking about the GSG, or the Sig. So this is a Sig 1911-22. This firearm is the same firearm as the GSG 1911-22. Sig was originally just taking these, rebranding them, and selling them for $150 more. I did buy this Sig. This was my first pistol I ever purchased, and I didn't really know that GSG was making them at the time. But now Sig has dropped this line, and you can only get the GSG versions. But I'd highly recommend them. You save some money going with GSG as well. This is your standard 1911 style pistol. Let's see both sides. You know, same controls, same weight. Does not have a tilting barrel. It's a little bit different, just a blowback action because of the 22. It's been a great gun for me, so hopefully it'll be just as good suppressed. So I do want to make a couple notes. This isn't a stock firearm. This has had some upgrades from cwaccessories.com. I've installed their performance enhancing kit, which included a different barrel bushing and different guide rod, a different spring, as well as I've added their 1/2 by 28 thread adapter and the frame plug kit. So when this firearm ships from Sig or GSG, there's a little Allen screw here that locks the barrel in place, and the barrel actually kind of free floats inside of the barrel bushing. It's not a very snug fit. What CW Accessories Performance Enhancing Kit does is it gives you a tighter barrel bushing to barrel and creates a lockup when the slide closes, so that you don't have to rely on that little screw to hold the barrel in place. The screw for me sometimes would back out a little bit, and then because there was space around the barrel bushing, the barrel would kind of float around and my accuracy would suffer. However, when it was tight, it was a pretty accurate gun. So this kit is supposed to also increase accuracy. Haven't really noticed that much of a difference, but I did notice that I don't have to worry about that screw coming out and causing the accuracy problems I was having with the screw in place. And they come with, when you get the performance enhancing kit, you can get this little frame plug and plug that up. You can return this back to the stock configuration, but in the stock configuration I had some issues with the recoil guide rod. Mine actually bent and was probably going to break within a few hundred rounds, so I did need to do the upgrade. This is a great little firearm. Alright, let's take a look at the next firearm we're going to be shooting. This is a GSG Firefly. This was also a firearm that was made by German Sport Guns, and then Sig would take and rebrand as the Mosquito. Now, GSG has continued to make them even though Sig dropped the Mosquito line. They're a neat little pistol. Obviously, they're cloned after a Sig. The grip, I think, is a little bit smaller, and you'll talk about that either during the shooting or during the final thoughts. But what's interesting about this gun is that it does have some cool controls for it. So this is a clear firearm. I'm just going to close it so I can show you some of the controls. You know, it's got a slide-mounted safety, ambidextrous. It's also got your normal slide lock, slide release. And then in addition to that, you also have a decocking lever right here, which is a feature you don't see on a lot of 22 pistols. So you get the controls of your classic Sig pistols in this gun. That's kind of neat. It's relatively new to me. I've only had it for a couple of months. This gun is really inexpensive, and you can get these for sub $200. So hopefully it makes a good host for the suppressor, And if so, I think it will be a great buy for people with suppressors. Alright, let's take a look at the final firearm. And that is your traditional Glock 19. This is a Gen 4. I do have the Glock slide still on this because I'm going to show you guys how easy it is to add your Advantage Arms conversion kit. Now these Advantage Arms kits are kind of hard to find and they're a little bit pricey, but you get the same trigger as your Glock, same grip handle, and so it makes for a good training tool, and it's cheap to shoot. So we're just going to change this out. This is a cleared firearm. We'll have to pull the trigger to disassemble this Glock. You take your Advantage Arms conversion kit and simply slide it on. Advantage Arms does say that you shouldn't dry fire these, so I often use a little, this is like a drywall stud to dry fire this. I use it as a snap cap. It works really well. Yellow, so I know it's not loaded. So sometimes I'll leave that in there. But see how easy it is to change that. And the thing with these are like I said, they're hard to find, and they are a little bit expensive. You know, they're over $200 just for the slide kit, which can be a little bit cost prohibitive when you're already talking about buying a Glock. You could get another, 22 pistol for that price. As you've seen, I said the Firefly was under $200 gun. And in addition to that, these don't come with the option of having a threaded barrel. You have to purchase the threaded barrel separately, which is an additional $110, $130 from Advantage Arms themselves or from another retailer. So these things can get a little bit expensive, but same sights as the factory Glock. You can upgrade those, but it has been a cool pistol for me. It's been pretty reliable. Now, just going to put this here for a moment. So for the testing today, we're just going to be using one type of ammunition. We're going to be using Remington Golden Bullets. These have an advertised muzzle velocity of 1,255 feet per second. That's coming out of a rifle length barrel though. So when you put these into a pistol, they're probably right around the sound barrier, because out of these guns, I've shot them all before, and I do notice that they will produce a supersonic crack on occasion, but for the most part, 97% of the time there's no crack and they stay subsonic. The reason we decided to use these is if you have an Advantage Arms kit, you're familiar. Advantage Arms recommends using CCI mini mags for absolute reliability, and that's pretty much standard with all 22 pistols across the board. They also recommend Federal Auto Match, however, hadn't had as good success with those. And then for cheap, inexpensive plinking, this is the ammunition that they recommend. So that's what I try to use in this firearm, and with it, it's been really reliable. I haven't had any more problems than you would have on a standard any other 22 gun firearm, because sometimes you get a dead primer or something, but you can't blame that on the Advantage Arms kit. So this has been really reliable in this gun, and for the most part, it's been a reliable ammunition for me in all of my firearms. It is maybe not the best manufacturing. The bullets have, loose crimps often, but, it runs, so I don't mind. And it's not that expensive. So we will be using this in all these firearms today just for a fair comparison. Alright guys, let's go out and do some shooting. Alright guys, so we're out here on the range now. We've got the Sig 1911-22, otherwise known as the GSG. It's cold out today. It's just under 30 degrees Fahrenheit. We're at about 1,000 feet of altitude. We're going to take 5 shots with each firearm at some steel targets. First, just nice, slow, try and get some accuracy, and then we'll just have some fun and get some video. We'll shoot into the berm, hopefully, and get some good sound comparisons here. So let's start this off. You did hear that last shot did go supersonic. It made that little cracking noise, but the other one sounded great. So let's take a look at that 5-shot group. Alright guys, so here's that steel target. We were shooting at about 10 yards, and you can see that 5-shot group. There's 3 in this little hole right here, .45. So we're talking about a 2-inch spread at 10 yards. That was probably me. I think if I paid a little more attention, they'd all be right in that little 1-inch group there. So it's a really accurate firearm. All right, let's have some fun shooting this thing. Okay guys, so just gonna shoot and have some fun now. We're just gonna put most of them into the bank so that you can really hear the sound, and then we'll put some on the steel targets. Here we go. Fair to go into battery. There we go. Do a little pocket reloading. Again, another failure to go into battery. A little tap will solve that. Failure to go into battery again. Failure to fire. That one had a solid strike, so it was probably just the ammunition. We see that with these Remington Golden Bullets. Alright, 10 shots. So a couple failures there. Failure to go into battery might be a little under oiled. We'll talk about that when we get inside. But other than that, functioned well. Alright guys, so here we have the GSG Firefly. We're going to do that same 5-shot grouping again, and then we'll have some fun and see how this thing sounds. We're going to shoot all these in single action, just for fairness sake, and giving this thing the best chance it can to be as accurate as the other firearms. Alright? Alright, there's 5 shots, guys. Alright guys, so here's that target with the GSG Firefly. You can see the 5 shots there, and it's a pretty big spread. I'd say it's about 4.5 inches at 10 yards, so a lot wider than the 1911-22. Okay guys, let's have some fun with this GSG Firefly. Just gonna again shoot some into the berm and also put a few on steel. Locked back early, and we'll talk about that particular malfunction inside, because that's something I've been having a lot of with this gun. Unfortunately, this gun only came with 1 magazine, so I did have to reload there, but let's do another mag. Alright, in this case, let's drop the slide and do some double action shooting. Failure to lock back on an empty round. Alright guys, so here's our last firearm. This is the Glock 19 Gen 4 with the Advantage Arms conversion kit on it. We're going to start out again with those 5 shots nice and slow just for accuracy, and then we'll move on to the shooting generally and just have some fun, and we'll get back in the house and do a little talking about these firearms. Alright, here we go. Alright, there's 5 shots, guys. Let's take a look at that group. Alright guys, here's that Advantage Arms conversion kit. Our 5 shots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's a pretty tight group as well. 10 yards, I'd say it's about 2 inches. Very comparable to the 1911-22. Okay, I've seen those groups. Let's just have some fun with this. Again, we're going to just put some into the berm so we can listen to the sound, and then we'll put some on the steel. Another dud primer. Got a bad batch of this Remington Golden Bullet. Another dud primer. Stud primer. Stud primer. Okay, alright guys, there's a few rounds through the Advantage arms. Now, apologize for these dud primers. I don't usually have this many out of these Remingtons. I have been firing them a second time and they've all been going off. I have been examining them as well, and they've all had good primer strikes, so I really do think it's just the ammo, and I must have just got a bad box of this stuff this time. Alright guys, so we're back from the range, and we're just going to do some final thoughts on these three firearms as suppressor hosts. So first off, I just want to bring up the barrel lengths of these three pistols. The Sig 1911-22, also GSG 1911-22, has a barrel length of 5 inches. Now that does not include the adapter that's added. And this adapter is a CW accessories adapter. On the Mosquito, we have a barrel length of 4.9 inches, and that does go to the end of the adapter. The adapter on this one is a Hughes Precision, an eBay special. The last firearm here is the Advantage Arms, and that one has a barrel length of approximately 4.5 inches, and that does include the adapter on it. So the actual barrel, the rifle portion of the GSG 1911-22 does not go to the end of the adapter. That's why I didn't include it in the barrel lengths. Alright, so first thing just to talk about, because that's what the video is about, is the sound of these three firearms. So the Sig 1911-22, to my ears, is the quietest of these three. It does sound the best. However, the Sig Mosquito was very, very close to that. We're talking just minuscule. And I don't even know if most people could probably tell the difference. I had a hard time, truthfully. However, the Advantage Arms kit is definitely a little bit louder. You know, it is a shorter barrel, maybe a lighter frame, as you know, slide as well, and maybe that causes some of that louder noise that you hear. Now, all three of these are very close, and the video probably doesn't even pick up the difference in sound. But when you're shooting them at the range, you can hear a little bit of difference between the three. It is minor though. So they're all good sounding hosts with this Advanced Armament Core Element 2. So I also wanted to talk about the reliability. You saw the Sig 1911-22 had a few failures to go into battery. Now, when I started this video, these two firearms were perfectly clean and well oiled. The Sig had not been cleaned and oiled. It didn't have a lot of rounds through, probably a couple of hundred, but you know, those couple hundred did have a suppressor, which makes them a little bit dirtier than without. So those failures to go into battery were likely due to it just being run a little bit dry, and had I put a little oil on the thing, I don't think we would have saw those. Because overall, this has been one of my most reliable 22 pistols. Really enjoy shooting that. As far as the Sig is concerned, the problems with that seem to be locking back. We had once where it locked back too early. We had another time on camera where it didn't lock back at the end with the last round. And I told you I was going to talk about the grip size of this firearm, and I think now's a good time to bring it up. So let's make sure she's clear. So this grip is a little bit small, and I don't even have really big hands. I'd say I'm between a medium and large, but when I hold the pistol with a thumbs forward approach, I find that the top of my thumb is often riding on the slide release if I'm not careful and paying attention. So what happens because of that is when the recoil of the firearm, it does lock back occasionally early. Although it's annoying, it's user error, and if I pay attention and keep my thumb a little bit down, I don't have that problem. I think that also causes the failure to lock back sometimes, because I think I'd still put a little bit of pressure, which will ride on the bottom of the slide, creating some undue friction, causing the failures to lock back too. And that's been my biggest problem with this firearm, and I think that'll probably get better. You know, like I said, I've only had this for a couple months. I've only put a few hundred rounds through it. As I shoot it more, I think I'll start, getting a better adjusted grip. So, still a good firearm in my opinion. Now, these Sig Mosquitos and GSG Fireflies did get a bad reputation because people were saying they're very unreliable. They do ship with two different recoil springs, a lighter recoil spring and a heavier recoil spring. So you can experiment with the different springs to try and get good reliability. With the added back pressure created by a suppressor, I haven't had really any problems with cycling. It's more just that locking back problem. There's also been some reports of these things having cracked frames. Now we can speculate as to why those frames are cracking, but it could just be that these 22s commonly have pot metal frames to keep them light so that they'll cycle. The cracking frames is not isolated to this particular firearm. It's been seen on Walther P22s as well. I tend to think it might be just from using a worn out recoil spring or just strictly using the light recoil spring and that hammering back the slide over and over again with the high velocity ammo. So what the cause is, we really don't know, but it's important that I point that out, that it could happen. So you do want to just keep an eye on things. It's, you always hear about the bad things more than the good things. So this might just be a couple of isolated incidents that people posted all over the internet. Now, moving on to the Advantage Arms conversion kit, we did have a few failures with that firearm, and all of those were primer related. After inspecting the cases of those 22 rounds, they did have solid, deep primer strikes, and by rotating them 180 degrees, reloading them, and firing them again, they all went off. Now, this Remington Golden Bullet, like I said, is not the best manufactured 22 long rifle, so you do get some dud primers in these things overall. In addition to that, banging 22s around, I think, loosens the primers in them a little bit, and I carry this back and forth to the range in a bulk pack where they're all just loose, so that may be responsible for some of those failures. I did shoot, more rounds through all of these firearms off camera, and I didn't have nearly as many primer issues as I did for the unfortunate 20 shots or so I took through this firearm on camera. I just want to talk about one other thing with this gun. It's hard to find these Advantage Arms conversion kits. They are relatively expensive, and for the expense that you pay, you're paying over $200 for the kit itself, and then another $100 or so for the threaded barrel. You could get yourself another one of these other 22 firearms instead. So you really have to consider whether you want to use your Glock frame to shoot 22, or if you just don't care and would rather just have any other 22 pistol. For that price, you could even get an M&P 22 compact or something. Speaking of the M&P compact, I think it's important to talk about the firearms that we didn't include today. Things like the Ruger 2245, things like the Ruger Mark series, the Buck Mark series, the Smith & Wesson Victory series, and then your polymer 22s like the Ruger SR22, the Walther P22, and the Smith & Wesson M&P 22 compacts, or just the regular old M&P 22. So we didn't include those today because there's a lot of videos of those firearms on the web. These are a little bit more obscure hosts, I think, for 22s. Not everybody has them. So I want to just provide you with some information. I think all those firearms, these three and those other ones that I was talking about, would make excellent 22 hosts. I think you're going to be really impressed with the sound of any 22 pistol suppressed. When I take people shooting suppressed firearms, 22 pistols just make them smile. And the nice thing is you can shoot pretty much any high velocity ammo, whatever's the cheapest thing, at Walmart or your local firearms store, because out of these short barrels, most of the time, I'd say 98% of the rounds remain subsonic and do not break the sound barrier, creating that supersonic crack that can be a little irritating when you're shooting suppress. So guys, overall, again, great firearms. I highly recommend all three of these. Personally, I do really like the Sig 1911-22, but that's just my personal preference. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please put them in the comments, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.